Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and I'm sure this video is going to be of massive interest to quite a few of you inside the community who absolutely despise these. That's right, wheeled vehicles in World of Tanks. What you're seeing here is footage from a test server where, in theory, with equipment 2.0, the EBR was possibly going to be able to go at 100 kilometers an hour. Now these vehicles, they're very controversial inside the game. Some people think they're a lot of fun to play, some people think they absolutely destroy the game. One thing's for certain though, within 30 seconds of the start of this game on highway, we've managed to literally cross the entirety of the map. We're driving in the lines of our opponents. Even though we've got a dead driver right now, it doesn't really look like our driver is dead. We're going to the left, we're going to the right. We're a very hard target for tanks to hit, even at 50 or 100 meters. And even with the Foch damaging our wheel, it doesn't really slow us down too much. With a large repair kit, we're instantly going to repair that. And just look at the spotting ticking up, ticking up, ticking up. Even though I've died at the start of this battle, we're going to end up with 6,000 spotting here. That's 3 tanks worth. Did what I do require much skill? Did what I do was possible to be countered by the enemy team? Not really. And that's why a lot of people hate these tanks. They absolutely despise them. They feel that they're too hard to hit, and when you do hit them, if you miss the hull and you hit the wheels, it seems to be magic. You're thinking, but I hit it, and it's taken no damage. It's actually because the hull shape on this vehicle is very awkward. The hull is actually only this part of the tank, and the whole of the central part out here is just the suspension system. And so when you're shooting an EBR, you have to hit very much in the center of the vehicle. And even from the side, there's quite a big distance between the hull and the wheels as well. And even when you hit the wheels, the vehicle doesn't even really slow down that much. Well, it looks like Wargaming are finally listening to those members in the community who have been despising these wheeled vehicles. So while what Wargaming has provided us is very wordy, I'm going to try and break it down for you and read the key details. So firstly, Wargaming go to describe the problem. They feel the wheeled vehicles survive too long, despite being under massive enemy fire while actively spotting. In addition, wheeled vehicles are almost impossible to immobilize because they do not stop when their suspension is damaged. This in turn has created a situation in which a player, in order to effectively engage a wheeled vehicle, should fully focus on taking them out of the game, which stops them from being able to engage all of the other things that they have to do, like getting into position, maybe turning their turret armor towards that tank that's about to hit them to be able to effectively bounce it. And importantly, even if you fully focus on trying to hit the wheeled vehicle, it's such a small window of opportunity to cause damage because of their speed that unless you quickly react to it, it's not a trivial task to be able to find the EBR. In addition, this is compounded by the fact that if the player knows very well how to play the EBR, they can take advantage of all of the maximum features that the vehicle has, and in turn it becomes very hard to be able to counter EBRs. And so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here's the big news. Wargaming plan to increase the effect of damage to the suspension on the vehicle's behavior of slowing it down, and that they will slightly reduce the statistics of the imbalanced vehicles by reducing their firepower and their mobility. So firstly, let's talk about how Wargaming are adjusting the mechanics of these vehicles. Firstly, they're going to make adjustments to the mechanics of when you damage wheels on the EBR. Currently, if you damage the wheel on an EBR, it's only going to affect the way that it can turn left and right. It's not actually going to affect the current speed of the vehicle. And so this means is that if currently you damage one of the wheels on an EBR and it doesn't turn left or right, it's still going to keep going at up to 95 kilometers an hour. However, if the EBR did slow down, for example, with making a quick turn, then it would take the vehicle more time to be able to get back up to speed. Importantly now, Wargaming want to change it so that if wheels are damaged, the vehicle's dynamics will reduce and also the speed will drop. That's a brand new change to the EBR. Damage to a drive wheel will reduce the overall engine power of the vehicle, and damage to a traction wheel will reduce the speed. Interestingly enough, Wargaming are also covering, well, what happens if the wheels are not touching the ground? They say, considering that almost all wheeled vehicles in the game have all-wheel drive, damage to any wheel, in brackets both retracted and lowered, will cause a reduction in vehicle dynamics. However, the speed of the vehicle will only decrease when the damaged wheels are currently touching the ground. And so this possibly might mean that in the EBR, if you choose to raise those two wheels in the middle of the vehicle, even if they're damaged, then your vehicle's dynamics might not be affected. That'll have to be something that I do test out if these changes do make it into the game. Moreover, Wargaming state that damage to the first wheel will have the greatest impact on the vehicle's speed and dynamics, and for each subsequently damaged wheel, the overall effect will increase, but less abruptly. So that's a huge impact to the Panhard EBR 105. Currently, if you hit one of the wheels, it will only affect it if it turns. And so this means that if a Panhard EBR 105 is moving at 95 kilometers and it takes damage to a single wheel, then its top speed is going to drop to 68 kilometers an hour. And if it takes damage to an additional wheel, then its top speed is going to drop down to 52 kilometers an hour. And everybody knows how easy it is to hit a vehicle that's moving at 52 kilometers an hour. Luckily for us, Wargaming have actually got a nice video here to show us exactly how this is going to happen. So currently, if a wheel is damaged, it still goes at 95. If these changes are made, it's going to go at 67. If an additional wheel is damaged, then currently the vehicle will slow down slowly to 75 kilometers an hour by the looks of it. Currently, whereas if they make these changes, I keep saying, almost wanting to say next patch, but remember, these are all ideas that Wargaming are possibly planning, but if they choose to put them in the game or not remains to be seen. And I guess it will come down to community feedback as whether they think that this is something they'd like to see. And if the second wheel is damaged, the vehicle will be slowed down to 52 kilometers an hour. That's a really big nerf to the EBR 105. And what that will do is it will make you feel as if it's more important if you hit the vehicle's wheels. Currently, you can hit the tank, do no damage, and it doesn't feel very useful. If these changes are made, if you hit the tank, don't hit the hull, but hit the wheels and slow it down enough to allow the FV215B183 to hit their shot and one-shot the vehicle, well then at least you're feeling you're making a bit of a difference. Unfortunately, however, this still doesn't fix the issue that even if you damage the wheels on the EBR 105 that you don't get any tracking assistance. I can imagine that would be quite tricky for Wargaming to manage to put into the game, but if there was a way for them to be able to do that, I personally would love to be rewarded for hitting that EBR's tracks, and maybe if I've taken a couple of them off, I feel I should be getting assistance for the person who has the easier shot on the very much slower wheeled vehicle. And the effective conclusion is it will make the vehicle very much more vulnerable. And I do agree. I totally agree. Hitting a tank at 52 is so easy compared to hitting a tank at 95. Or even hitting a tank at 68 is so much easier than hitting a tank at 95. No one really has that much of an issue in hitting the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen that's driving around at 70 kilometers an hour, or a Leopard, although the Leopard is very much bigger. It's really when you go from 70 up to 90 or even 95 that truly the issue becomes apparent. In addition to these changes, Wargaming are planning on rebalancing the technical characteristics of two of the most powerful wheeled light tanks. Those are the Panhard EBR 105 and the Panhard EBR 90. And please remember that all of these changes are preliminary and adjustments are not final. So firstly, let's take a look at the tier 10 French wheeled light tank. Dispersion when moving is getting massively increased from 0.06 up to 0.08. Its dispersion on the hull traverse from 0.06 up to 0.08, and when it turns its turret from 0.03 up to 0.04. This is very significant. This probably means that your Panhard EBR is going to have to use vertical stabilizers if you want to still be able to engage tanks at good distances effectively. Currently, at least for me personally, I feel that the meta on the Panhard EBR is probably to take a gun rammer, vents, and coated optics. That's purely to be able to buff up the view range as much as possible, because the view range is really the thing that holds the vehicle back. Sacrificing those vertical stabilizers is only possible because of the godlike dispersion values, and so if Wargaming nerfed that probably means that EBR drivers are going to actually have to consider using vertical stabilizers on their EBR, which means that they're either going to have to drop the vents or they're going to have to drop the gun rammer. Now, if they drop the gun rammer, that's going to lower their overall fire output. If they drop the vents, then everything about the vehicle is just going to get a little bit worse. And especially most EBR drivers are probably running improved equipment on their tier 10 wheeled vehicle, and that's 7.5% cruise skill, which makes the whole of the vehicle 3.75% better. So that will be a massive nerf. Effectively, this will be the equivalent of just removing vertical stabilizers from the vehicle. If you're using vertical stabilizers now, if they make this nerf, then it'll be the equivalent of you just taking them off now and just playing the vehicle. That would be what it would be like, if that makes sense. It's basically like taking an equipment slot off the Panhard EBR 105. It's a very big change. In addition to this, the aim time will go from 1.2 up to 1.4, which means that the vehicle isn't going to snapshot after stopping. It's going to have to stay still for a lot longer. And also that aim time will affect the way that the dispersion values, well, it won't affect the dispersion values, but it'll affect the way that they combine in together. So it'll be doubly bad for the gun handling of the EBR 105. Now, this is a huge change. The view range is going from 350 down to 340. That's very significant. One of the things that makes these vehicles overpowered is the fact that when you have brothers in arms, when you have a premium consumable, when you have situational awareness, when you have recon, when you've got improved equipment on the tank, that is what makes the Panhard EBR absolutely outrageous. By reducing its view range to 340, that probably means that even if you have the vehicle fully tricked out with every conceivable possible advantage that you could put on the tank, I think the vehicle is going to be hard capped at about 450 meters view range, which should give other light tanks more of an opportunity, and even medium tanks, to be able to possibly spot it at decent distances, or at least remain hit. Well, yeah, to spot it at decent distances without getting spotted by the Panhard EBR 105. Because obviously with the maximum spotting distance in the game at 445, a fully maxed out Panhard EBR 105 currently can get up to 470 meters view range, and it will see all heavies at the 445 meters spotting distance cap. But of course, with its 45 to 48% camo rating that you can have on this vehicle, the heavies probably aren't going to be seeing you unless you get within about 300 meters of them. Also, Wargaming are planning on nerfing the engine power of this vehicle and the top speed limit down from 95 to 91, and the reverse speed in the rapid mode from 70 to 65. In addition, Wargaming are planning on increasing the chance that this vehicle will be set on fire when its engine is hit by 50%, by increasing it from 10% to 15% chance every time your engine is hit for the vehicle to self-combust. In addition to this, Wargaming are planning on nerfing the Panhard EBR 90 from its reverse speed from 85 down to 83, and I presume this will be its top speed forwards, maybe a bit of a typo, down to 83 as well. In addition, its engine power from 580 down to 560, so not significant nerfs to the Panhard EBR 90, but significant nerfs to the Panhard EBR 105. So Wargaming's conclusion is that they believe that the changes will affect the overall performance of wheeled vehicles in battles. Well, of course they will, when you do significant changes to pretty much every aspect of the tank. And while they remain effective at active scouting, which is their role in the first place, they'll deal less damage to enemies, especially from a distance. Well, that must be down to the dispersion values on the vehicle. And they'll lose a little from their dynamics and their top speed, especially when the wheels are damaged, which means that you're going to have to play more carefully in your wheeled vehicles and perhaps wait for your repair kit to come back off cooldown so you can use it at an opportune moment. Whereas now, I personally don't think that most wheeled light tank drivers are even considering their repair kit, because even if their wheels get hit, they can just keep on chugging along until they hopefully get round the corner or get behind a little bit of cover. So now there's a couple more things that I want to talk about. Firstly, just how overpowered are the French wheeled light tanks currently? Well, the Panhard EBR 105 has a 50.77% win ratio on the European server if you look holistically across all of the accounts. And if you just look at all of the light tanks in the game, then the Panhard EBR is significantly outperforming all of the light vehicles at tier 10. How funny is it that the Manticore and the T100 LT are barely scraping above 50% win ratio, and vehicles like the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen are down below 47% average win ratio. It's absolutely appalling. And while I'm happy that Wargaming are making steps to try and clamp down on the Panhard EBR 105 and its performance, it's quite interesting to me that the Panhard EBR 105 is still kind of only packing an average win ratio of 50.77, which to me suggests that the better players are probably using the vehicle's characteristics to get insane win ratios, whereas the worst players are probably not actually truly excelling in the vehicle anyway. And it's also interesting to me as to why they would target nerfing a wheeled light tank like this when there are still some tier 10 tank destroyers in the game that are packing 53% average win ratio. I'm looking at you, Object 268 version 4. It doesn't look like the nerfs of the vehicle last time were quite enough. But that's beside the point. Light tanks are currently not in a very good position. You have to be a little bit of a hipster if you want to go for your light tanks inside the game. I think the Panhard EBR 105 was probably all in all the best performer of all of the tier 10 light tanks. But whether or not it's the wheeled vehicles across every single tier that are the ones that are just exceptionally punching above their weight is another question. For example, the Panhard EBR 90 has practically an identical win ratio to the T54 lightweight. And if we look at how the premium wheeled light tank is performing, the Panhard EBR 75, it's actually got a worse win ratio than the LT432 has on the European server. While the Panhard AML Lynx 6x6 has actually got one of the worst win ratios of any light tank at tier 8. But that's really coming down to the vehicle just having atrocious view range where it's unable to be the effective scout that quite often the team needs. And currently Wargaming haven't clarified whether these wheeled mechanics changes are going to affect the Panhard EBR 75, but I presume if these are fundamentally changing the way that wheels work inside the game, then this is effectively going to be one of the very first times in many years that Wargaming have effectively nerfed a premium vehicle. And if that's going to be the case, hats off to you, Wargaming. It's about time that you start actually nerfing premium tanks. Just because people have paid real money for them doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to adjust the statistics of overperforming vehicles that are frankly damaging your game. If I can leave any feedback, and I know I'm kind of derailing the point of this video, it would be that one of the ways that you could kind of recover from the pay-to-win direction that World of Tanks has been going over the last 3 years with regards to the kind of premium tanks that have been entering it would be to have the confidence in yourself to realize that premium tanks are slightly overperforming across every single tier and to possibly reduce the statistics of the outliers. But hey, one step at a time, right? So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's it. Wheeled light tanks. Looks like nerfs are on the horizon. These are planned changes, and all that we can do is wait to see if and when they will be implemented. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing the comment section down below. Are you a wheeled light tank driver who thinks that this is just absolutely horrific and you're going to despise the changes? Are you a wheeled light tank driver who fully admits that maybe the mechanics are a little bit toxic for the game and that you don't see that these are going to exactly kill the class altogether? Or are you not a wheeled light tank driver out there who absolutely hates these vehicles and you can't wait to see these changes go into effect? And anyway, that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And I'm looking forward to reading all of your comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic and hopefully I'll see you soon.